Judy was a mess, basically. Judy was unbelievably talented. She was this little fragile bird that could just tear up the stage and be so exciting. But at 22, 23, I was so idealistic. I just thought sometimes she's so unprofessional, It was, and she was. But she was, she was addicted to so many things, and she was so nuts, from all that addiction or whatever it was. I don't know. I hate to say things about people after they're dead, but some weeks she would be absolutely brilliant, and other weeks she'd make you wait. We would wait. We would do two shows. We'd do a show on Friday night and a show on Saturday night, which was just agony because sometimes Saturday night she never showed up or whatever, or she would be late, and all the dancers, we have all these, it was like a movie. We had all these chorus girls sitting around all dressed, waiting to go on and waiting for Judy to come out of her trailer. And at CBS, they didn't have dressing rooms. When they built CBS television studios, they built it like a radio station. They gave everybody a closet with a key, and of course, when you started doing shows that had any costumes at all, there was no place for anybody to dress. So they put a trailer out on the balcony and opened the window up and painted a yellow brick road into that studio, 33. So it was just, the whole thing was just a little weird. But it was, like I said, I met and got to know more people on that show than ever before. But Judy herself was an interesting woman. I used to go to her house on Sunday nights. She'd invite people from the show that she liked and whatever, and watch the show with her. And she really had a good time watching herself. She liked that. And she was funny and entertaining and all of those things. But then the next day she might, slash her wrist or something. Who knows? It was sort of horrifying. And I knew her, but I wasn't that close. Ray, who I was working with, he got to be much closer with her, and he would get the calls in the middle of the night. And that's very hard. You shouldn't, I don't believe you should ever get that close to somebody that you're working with. I think, you become friends, but you shouldn't be their best friend that could call you in the middle of the night to take you to the hospital and things like that. But I learned a lot watching her, and I learned a lot about the people that were there. Some of the most memorable times were when she had someone on the show that were good competition. Then she would come up to it. She would absolutely perform like nobody. You couldn't believe it. If Lena Horne was on the show, or Peggy Lee was on the show, or Barbra Streisand, real competition when Barbra Streisand was on the show. And then to be standing there and seeing Barbara, who you knew at that moment was going to be this huge star, and Judy Garland, who had been and still was, and then there was Ethel Merman, who was the diva of Broadway, and they were all on stage at the same time. It was like unbelievable. And then there was another time when John Kennedy had been assassinated, and he was a friend of hers. I mean, she just called him on the phone, saying happy birthday on his birthday and things like that. And she was devastated. We had a show that we canceled the show. And the next week she came on and sang Battle Hymn of the Republic, which, and the audience just stood up and screamed. I mean, it was really very emotional. And I'm standing there watching this, thinking, my God, this is really something. So there were those moments, even though the show was never a hit, it was critically quite a hit in many ways. But it was opposite Bonanza, so we know what the greater unwashed America wanted to watch. I was trying to think what we did for her. Most of the time she wore evening gowns or pantsuits. But the lady, never had any money. She never had anything. I mean, she made a lot of money, but she never had anything to wear. And she was going to New York, and I remember at one point, Ray says, she hasn't got anything to wear. I says, well, why don't we make her some beautiful little coats and suits and have her, and talk to the art director, who was Bob Kelly, wonderful art, Bob Kelly, and do a street scene and let her, make her some suits, make her some coats and things that she can travel in and go to New York. And so for a while we were doing little suits with fur trim and little hats, and she would do the number in that. And then she'd also have evening gowns. But we were like trying to, boost up her wardrobe a little bit. She had a very odd figure. It would be almost impossible for her to go buy clothes in the store. She was only 4'11", which was amazingly short, and was high heels and long legs for her height, and a very short body, full-breasted. And so it was hard to dress her. I mean, you could never buy clothes that would really look great on her. So I think Ray did a really good job, and from that he got a lot a lot of things, movies and whatever, came from that. She was raised at MGM, and she was told what to wear. And she really trusted the designer. I mean, there were things that I think, after she wore them, she really liked that maybe more than that. But she loved theatrical things. She loved glamorous things. She loved things that she felt good in. And she hadn't looked good in a long time. She'd been, at this point, she was not overweight. She was quite slim. And people were, giving her a lot of attention about the way she looked. And it was a big plus for her, that part. And she loved her clothes. They all went home. That's why there's none of them really existing anywhere, because they probably got trashed along the way. Some collectors have them, but it's interesting. I mean, she never looked quite like that before or after. I worked a lot. Liza was 17, and she was on the show often. And I mean, we had incredible people on that show. When you think back, Lena Horne, Peggy Lee, Ethel Merman, Chita Rivera. I mean, it was, Tony Bennett, Jack Jones. I mean, they were just anybody that was wonderful in music other than Dean and Frank were on the show. And she had done a special with them just the year before, so they weren't, that apt to be on. But it was great. I mean, there was great people there that were from that generation, and they were people that were often at the ends of their careers, and it was very exciting to see them performing really well. And they were competing with her as well, so it was kind of interesting.